What is up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of Chris Talks. We've been doing this series for a little while now, and I really appreciate you sticking with me through this. And it's been really exciting because I've been able to share more, I guess, personal thoughts with you regarding the music technology side of things, the music industry, composing, basically anything that comes to music. And it's been really nice to hear your response as well. I know that you've been suggesting some certain topics, so I definitely want to cover those. And today I want to talk about sample libraries again, but answering a very specific question, and that really is there a best sample library? And I guess we can be a little more specific. Is there like a best category of sample library? Like, is there a best string library, a best woodwind library, and so on and so forth? So it might be a slightly tricky question to answer, but we'll attempt to do that in this episode. Before we jump into it though, in case you are looking for some new sample libraries, I want to give you my sample library buyer's guide in case you don't have it yet. It's basically a collection of all the sample libraries that I personally use on a regular basis, and I categorize it all by prices and the different sections. In addition to orchestral stuff, there's also piano stuff, jazz stuff, ethnic stuff, and so on and so forth. And it's totally free. So if you want to check it out, just click the link in the box below. It'll take you straight there, and you can download it as my thank you for watching this episode, or listening if you're just listening on a podcast. So let's answer that question. Is there a best sample library? And I think the word best has always been very subjective, right? I mean, the whole concept of trying to be the best at something is kind of a fruitless pursuit, in my opinion, just because there's always going to be someone who's better than you. And even if you're objectively better than someone else at something, there will always be someone who will be better than you in the future anyway. And it's kind of one of those things where you kind of, if you adopt that mentality of trying to be the best, then over time it's going to start to sap your energy, right? I think a better alternative is to try to approach things from a good enough standpoint. So I'm doing work that I enjoy, and I know I can make a living from it. I know it serves the world, and I know it makes me happy, and that should be giving me contentment enough. I shouldn't strive to be the absolute best because there's a lot of pains and tribulations that can go through that process. I've heard some horror stories. I've seen what happens with artists basically who try to be the very, very best in their field. Like, let's say concert pianists as an example. There's a lot of people who will just grind and practice 10 12 hours a day, lock themselves in practice rooms and just grind a repertoire and skills and technique for hours on end. And that's something I could never do. I mean, in university, my program was in classical piano performance, and I would book practice rooms, and I think the max I practiced in a room at one time was probably 4 hours. And it can be pretty draining, just because it takes a lot of mental energy, and the fact that you're doing the same skill over and over is very draining over time, unless you have a specific drive for it to be so good that people cannot help but talk about you or notice you or whatever. But that's another topic for another day, like competition and all of that. But that, talking about sample libraries, when we start to approach technology with the same question, like what is the best microphone or what is the best library, it's a little bit different because it ultimately depends on what we need for our own purposes, right? So if you ask what's the best piano library, then the next question you should be asking is for what? Like, what is the best piano library for cinematic music? What is the best piano library for classical music or jazz music, right? Because every single context or every single musical field or genre has their own specific flavor or sound, So some piano libraries will be processed a little bit differently, or they'll have a different number of velocity layers, for example, or the weightedness of the different keys and all of that, the pedal noise or whatever. Each piano library will feature specific sample sets and different features in GUI designs that might appeal to some people over others. So the question of, is this the best library for me, is a better question than, is this the objectively best sample library out there? So yeah, it kind of comes down to also like a minimalist mindset, I think, in a way, because you're asking yourself, what do I need to really just get by, right? I mean, if you have floods of money to really spend on libraries, then by all means, please do it. But I just think in general, if you approach things from a more minimalist mindset, where you're asking yourself, do I really need this library? Is it the best library for my specific purposes? then you start to ask those better questions and you can inform yourself whether or not you're actually going to be using that library in the future. And I think we all have libraries that we just keep on our hard drives within our computers or on external drives, and we just never use them. And we have buyer's remorse because we saw it once and we got really excited about it and we bought it. And then as soon as we started downloading it and maybe tried it out, we just never went back to it because it was just never that appealing to us anymore. So ultimately, I think to answer the question, is there a best sample library? The answer should more be like, or the question should be more like, what is the best sample library for me? And then so you ask yourself, what kind of musical purposes am I trying to serve? Am I trying to write a lush emotional string line? So in that case, maybe Cinematic Studio Strings or Berlin Symphonic Strings or something like that might be a better suited string line or string library than Araya by Audio Imperia, for example. But if I want to write like a trailer track with biting strings and really bright, aggressive type of signatures, then Araya might be a better option than CSS, which is naturally darker in nature, right? So every library will naturally excel at different things. So if we start approaching it from that perspective of what is this best library for me, and does this library do what I need it to do, that is a much better way to make your purchasing decision rather than saying, what is the best string library or what is the best woodwind library? Of course, there are objective qualities about libraries, like let's say how well the legato operates, how smoothly the notes connect together, right? How clean are the samples, right? Can you hear the detail? Does it respond quickly to your playing? Those stuff, those are basic guidelines of a good sample library, of course. But once you get past a certain level, it's not really about the functionality of the library, but it's more about if that library serves your specific needs. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions about that. But yeah, sample libraries are always a huge topic just because they're widely used by all composers, especially for mockups and, you know, virtual orchestrations. We need to get those tools to really make our music come to life nowadays. So yeah, it's really interesting. Love sample libraries, but I've tried, you know, to dial things back over the past couple of years. You know, one reason being my external drives are just filling up. They're kind of they don't have very much space anymore, so I'll probably need to get out and buy some more. But it's just easier to go in and remove stuff that I haven't used for a long time, and it just makes me feel better because I know that I'm cleaning out space for stuff eventually that I will use in the future, you know, or hopefully will use. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you don't have my sample library buyer's guide yet, which is totally free, feel free to download it in the description box below. Just click the link and it'll take you there. As a quick reminder, it contains all of my personal recommendations. You can't really go wrong with these because these are pretty well regarded for different purposes and by different people. And I've organized them by sections, and I've also listed the prices for each one so you kind of know what you're getting into and how much your investment will be. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.